Welcome to A Drink of Wisdom. With Nathan Drinkard, I'm your host, Cody Ward. Thank you for spending some of your time with us tonight. Now, as a reminder to all our listeners, besides being on all your favorite podcast platforms, A Drink of Wisdom is also on YouTube with each show segment available. Head on over if you like what you hear. We would appreciate your subscription. What's going on, man? Big Friday. I'm stoked. It's conference championship weekend, man.
Right.
So
Championship week. You know what it is. We back in the building. Another outstanding Friday. So you know what it is. Let's talk some sports, baby. And go on and pull up a seat because you know we got to speak. Cody, go on, let them know what we got on the agenda today.
All right, let's do it. In episode 23, we're previewing the 2021 NBA season and, of course, covering that aforementioned college football weekend. But first, let's get to some Thursday night football action. We had the 6th overall pick in action and the Chargers and Raiders. Justin Herbert, man, he's shown bright under those lights in Vegas. He led the Chargers to a 30-27 overtime win. He threw for 314 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 0 picks. The Raiders quickly lost the services of Derek Carr in the game to a groin injury, with Marcus Mariota taking over. He threw for 226 yards and ran for another 88, but a costly pick helped make up the difference. The Chargers seriously dashed the Raiders' playoff hopes, sending them to 7-7, 2 games back of the Ravens with just 2 games left to play. So, Drink, were you more impressed by the Chargers or more disappointed by the Raiders?
Well, before I get to that question, I just need to say that I think Mariota should be in the MVP conversation because that was a sensational performance last night. What says you?
The man's making $17 million to be a backup. I don't want to hear it.
No, I'm just playing.
He played well. I'll give him credit.
I just try to get the feathers a little ruffled early.
Yeah,
but to answer your question, to be honest with you, I'm more disappointed with the Raiders. Listen, I know that they lost their starting quarterback, so what do you expect, right? But even before you lost them, I thought the Chargers were still willing and dealing. When we seen the Chargers take the ball first, they just marched down the field. It wasn't like the Raiders had much resistance on the first drive. And then so on and so forth. You said the stats, 314 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 picks. That has nothing to do with Derek. Well, that has very little to do with Derek Carr being hurt. Why? Because you just said Marcus Mariota came and took over, and he didn't have a bad game himself. So the offense was playing. It was the defense. Therefore, I'm more disappointed with the Raiders. And listen, this is not a one-year anomaly. I didn't watch one game of the Raiders and say, oh, my God, they're awful or anything. But I will tell you this. With them being 7-7, and last year they finished the season 7-9, it's looking like a trend at the end of the season. I don't know what's going on with the Las Vegas Raiders, but they seem to run out of gas. It might be a little more expensive on the West Coast. I don't know, but they seem to be running out of gas. And I think it's time to blame some of this on John Gruden. Like, what are we doing, John? You pumping the boys up in the first half, and in the second half, you coming out here, flat. You coming out here like tires in the wintertime, coming out here flat. No. All right, you need to put the pressure back into them tires, and we need to hit this road running and hit the nearest gas station. But, with all that said, the Raiders wasn't all bad. Josh Jacobs, I thought, looked really good last night. He ran for over 100 yards with a TD. So he looked impressive. It was, like I said, it wasn't all bad. I just suspect the Raiders, with the moves that they made, you don't have that big group of picks anymore, so you're relying on these young guys. Because I hear, hey, the Raiders are young. They're young. They're young by choice. We do know that, right? We do know that the Raiders are young by choice. They had star players. They traded those star players for picks. Therefore, those picks are young players. So they wanted to be young on purpose. That was the Mike Mayock and John Gruden plan. Cool. But don't come around and say, oh, well, we're kind of young, so we need a little time. No, y'all need to start winning to justify this 10-year, $100 million contract that John Gruden got. But let me get my hands out of his pockets. Let's go here to the Chargers a little bit, and let me give them some shine. I thought the Chargers was impressive. Listen, I think the Chargers are one of the more competitive losing teams, if that makes sense. Like, since Justin Herbert has took over the role of captain, he's been leading the ship. Other than the 45-0 shellacking that they got from the Patriots, the rest of the games have been pretty highly competitive. And I think right now, if I had to vote Rookie of the Year, I think Justin Herbert is in the lead right now. I think it's between him and Jordan Jefferson, the wide receiver out of Minnesota. But it's just very hard for me to see a wide receiver win this award over a quarterback. Could it happen? Yeah. I just don't think it will. And I think Justin Herbert has proven himself to be the more valuable of all three quarterbacks that came out the top three quarterbacks that came out that draft. I'm talking about him, Burrows, and Tua.
He's also played the most, so that, remember he came in week 1 from the start, basically.
But how did he look in week 1? Remember what we were saying.
Chiefs.
You remember? See, and that's my point. Like, Tua been looking good too. Joe Burrow, they've all had their moments, but I'm just talking about the consistency, because you remember Tua got pulled and got benched.
True.
And then, Joe Burrow, before he got hurt, they was kind of in the abyss. Even though he was playing well, the team was in the abyss. Whereas I got to give credit where credit due. The Los Angeles Chargers found a way to stick around which, in my opinion, the best team in the NFL right now, the Kansas City Chiefs. And they stuck around. That should have been a smoke check blowout central. But, Justin Herbert used the talent around him, smart IQ. They seem to have, Anthony Lynn seemed to be having something going on there. I like what I see out the Chargers. And I think the Chargers is a team, if you want to use the youth excuse, they will be able to use that excuse more than the Raiders, in my opinion, because the guy that's calling the plays, the captain of the ship, is a young guy. He is a rookie. So I understand that. I don't know. Raiders, neither one of your quarterbacks are close to being rookies. So we're going to cry about having a young team, but your best player on offense is a second-year guy, a third-year guy, Josh Jacobs. So, I don't want to hear that no more. Like, and hey, John Gruden, you think we didn't see that wardrobe malfunction? You came rolling out there in the old Oakland Raiders hat on the first half. Then you went and found your Las Vegas Raiders hat in the locker room at halftime. I seen it. But with all that said, to wrap it up, like I said, I think Herbert, Rookie of the Year right now, leading for Rookie of the Year. And I think it's about time somebody pull John Gruden coattail, because you're getting paid $10 million a year, and there's a lot of players in that locker room that didn't get paid because of what you're getting paid. Hey, it's time to tighten it up. I don't want to hear no more, Gruden grinders. You drawing X's and O's now, so let's tighten up. Let's figure out how to finish the season somewhat strong there, John. And good win for the Chargers, bad loss for the Raiders, and we'll see where both teams go from here.
Yeah, I kind of thought the Raiders would take care of business. You look at this team and you would have thought, because we saw it happen last year. You already kind of alluded to it. They started the season 6-4. They finished 7-9. This year they started 6-3, and they're 7-7 now, which it looks like you're on the timeline. And they did have injuries. They definitely weren't at full capacity, and obviously the Derek Carr injury was huge. I'm not going to downplay that, but if they were a playoff team, if they were legitimately a playoff team, even a wild card, a 6 or even a 7 seed this year, because that's the thing now, you think they would have found a way to win this game, especially with how well Marcus Mariota came in and played. I mean, you didn't put in your Nathan Peterman wasn't backing him up. I mean, you had a guy that's been in the NFL for a number of years and is getting quality money to be a backup, and he played well. So how could you not put away a team that pretty much has been competitive but found ways to lose plenty of games this year? I mean, the Chargers, they're still, a 4-9 team? I mean, they're not good. They've lost plenty of close games. And if you're an NFL team, you don't make those mistakes. Or, I'm sorry, a playoff team, you don't make those mistakes. And the Raiders did, and it kind of exposes that something doesn't click with this team. And I don't know if it's the coaching. I don't know if it's like Derek Carr being on a different sort of timeline than the young talent around him. Maybe it was a mistake to keep him. Maybe they should have drafted a quarterback and had a more complete team that was kind of all on the same trajectory. I don't know.
That's all growing together.
Right, exactly. Because he's already gotten his second contract and all that. Whereas it's like they blew everything up except the quarterback, and now they're trying to catch it all back up. And it's a weird mix. And of course, when you hire John Gruden, you give him complete, absolute, total control. You're gonna get what you get, But it's one hand, it's telling that he's able to keep these young teams in playoff contention, but it's also equally telling that they're falling off at the wrong time. What apparently is year after year. Because I'll go ahead and keep going with them. When you look at their schedule, the first half of the year, man, they beat the Saints 34-24. They beat the Chiefs. They're the only team to do it, 40-32.
Mm-hmm.
They beat the Browns. The Browns clearly have recovered since then, and they're a good team. And we just rant and raved about how good they were 3 nights ago. They were 6-3 down the stretch up into the Broncos game, and then the back half of the schedule, you looked at it and went, this should be easy. The only team they beat is the Jets, and they had to have the worst play call in world history to beat the Jets. They should have lost that game. They should have lost to the Jets. So they should have lost 5 straight games. If the Jets weren't blatantly, irrefutably tanking, So you look at it now, and it's like, well, your playoff hopes are basically dead, right? Because you're chasing Baltimore. Okay, you played one of your 3 remaining games, and you lost it, so now you have 2 to get left. The Baltimore Ravens have the Jaguars, the Giants, and the Bengals their last 3 games. So they're taking full advantage of the easy half of their schedule, where you have the Dolphins, which you're going to host them, so that's nice. But then you have to go play Denver the last week of the season, and Denver's not great, but they're also not a pushover either. So it's sad again that they had that work from Marcus Mariota, and they had all this going on, and the defense couldn't do anything. I think it was Trayvon Mullen. He was getting just destroyed all night, and that wasn't Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. That was like, 3rd and 4th round picks. Those are some random dudes out there for the Chargers, and these guys were getting broke off. It's not good. The whole thing is just not good. Again, I know they weren't in full strength, but man, that's rough. And for the Chargers, formally let go on record, I totally apologize to Justin Herbert. I crapped on him all through the draft process. I crapped on him after the draft process. And you look at the film with him, and you saw times where you thought, okay, yeah, this guy's legitimately top 5 pick material. And then you'd see games and times you're like, how is this guy getting drafted? Like, what is this? And there's been so many of these big arm, 6'8" dudes that can throw the football out of the stadium, and they get to the NFL, they can't process it, they can't read it, they can't figure it out, and they just fall on their face. He just seemed like a guy that would look like a bust, but he's had a pretty good, situation. He's on a team that's, not great, but they're figuring it out. They're not like haplessly bad. And he's good, man. Like, he's really good. You're looking at his stats of the season, with this now, despite the 4-9 record, his completion percentage about 66.5%, 3,700 yards, 27 touchdowns, 10 picks. He tied Baker Mayfield's rookie touchdown record last night. So undoubtedly he'll probably throw one more, at some point in the rest of his 2 games. So, and a question for the Chargers now, what I kind of took away from this game, not so much in the game itself, was, I know that they're winning, and they might win another game or 2. They're probably going to finish maybe 6-10, 5 and some whatever. But is Anthony Lynn going to be here next year? And I question it for a couple reasons, because the Chargers now have to answer the question, is he the guy that can make Justin Herbert better? Is he the guy that can continue to develop Justin Herbert and keep him on this trajectory? And you look at all the problems with clock management they've had. They've lost a couple games because of that. They've lost a couple really close games. They've blown some big leads. They are like Atlanta Falcons bad with blowing leads this season. They were talking about during the game, like 17-point leads they've blown, and 12-point, 10-point leads, and just it's been bad, and some of the coaching decisions just in this game were like, what are you doing? Justin Herbert, from, like you said, from the first drive, he was torching these guys left and right. They had no answer for him. And, there was a minute to go until halftime. It was the drive that put the Chargers up 17-10. They were throwing screens, and then, Herbert had this big, 25-yard gain on a 3rd and 12, and he threw the touchdown the next play. But they, up until that point, they were run the ball, and just, the first drive of the second half, they tried some wildcat nonsense, and they kept running the ball and was getting nowhere. They ran it on a 3rd and short and got stuffed. And Justin Herbert attempted one pass, drop back in the 4th quarter. He actually threw one pass in the 4th quarter. Now, a lot of that was ate up by a long drive by the Raiders. But, despite him carving them up all day, and despite the game being closed, you didn't have the ball in your player's best hands. And Anthony Lynn, after the game, he says, oh, well, we had to run the ball. We couldn't just throw it. Well, I've never heard Andy Reid say, "Yeah, we can't get Patrick Mahomes the ball. We got to run the ball." I've never heard most great teams with great quarterbacks say that. That's ridiculous. And I mean, he seems not have him ready every week. I mean, this team got destroyed by the Patriots, 45-0. There's clearly issues with them getting up to play every week. There's clock management problems. There's blown leads. My point is this: I think that the Chargers might want to still consider moving on from Anthony Lynn, even if they finish 6-10 or 7 and even 7-9. I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen enough this year to think that, because again, it's important, because if you get this wrong in the next 3 years, your window is basically 3 years now. And now that Herbert is playing at a franchise level, you've got to capitalize on that, before he gets a huge contract, and then it gets harder to maintain your winner. They've got a window now, and you got to know if he's the guy. And I don't know. I don't see it, but.
Right. No. Okay. So I understand what you're saying, but I'm of the listen. I'm not making no excuse for none of the piss poor decisions he made this year. Not at all. But I would say this: it is a new dynamic. You thought you were gonna start off the year with Tyrod Taylor, a guy that would have known more, would have had more tools in his box as far as clock management or end of the game management, and then you end up with a rookie that you have to like speed up the game now because listen. For all intents and purposes, Herbert was supposed to be on the bench for at least the first 5 games or so to learn those type of things. That was the plan, to learn, because these are the things that a young quarterback learns when they get to sit on the sideline and watch game action. Instead, he got thrown into action, and for as good as his talent is, he kind of lacked on some of the smaller things, and that's fine. He's a rookie quarterback. Right. You're learning. And I think for Lynn, it's also a learning experience as a head coach. What other time has he had a rookie quarterback? So I think I would say this, and if they canned him, I wouldn't be like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. But if they bring him back for another year, I think that's fair too. Give him another shot to show. Listen, I learned a lot last year. I got a PhD. Let me show you what I learned last year. Being the head coach of the Chargers, and then give him another shot. And then if he fumbles it, if he messed this opportunity up, listen, Herbert will only been in the league for 2 years at that point. I don't think you're gonna ruin his career by doing it unless you do some awful nonsense with the offensive line and he's dying out here and we're giving him the Andrew Luck treatment. You know what I'm saying? But as long as he can stay upright, I think Lynn could get another year because it could be worse. The Chargers could be absolutely worse than they are now.
Oh, they could also hire the wrong guy and go backwards. I mean, the grass isn't always greener. I just wonder if, when you get a guy like Herbert, now he's shown you, hey, I can be your franchise quarterback. He can make all the throws. And what's most impressive about Herbert, man, if you really watch him, he has no problem taking these downfield shots. That's a problem a lot of guys have. They get squeamish. They get a little conservative. They think, well, I don't want to make the big mistake, but he has no problem airing that thing out. He was torching them deep. I mean, there was a beautiful deep ball, and his ability to play make. There's a lot of good stuff to like. I hope that they really evaluate what they want at that position and what they want, for the coaching around him, and then make the right decision. Because I think if they do, whether it's keeping him or firing him, I'm not saying exactly, my opinion, but I think, either way could definitely work. If you do that, I mean, the Chargers could be a contender pretty quick. I think you have a lot of guys coming back on the defense. You got guys like Derwin James, who hopefully, fingers crossed, will be healthy. There's a lot to like if they get the draft right and they get the right coaches. This team can be really good, really fast. And for the Raiders, man, I mean, I guess you got to start hoping to hit some 3 and 14 parlays. Otherwise, you're on your couch again. So we'll see.